Hey y'all, this is Jacob with Rise and Land Clearing Growth. I wanted to show you a cool tool that we use to kind of do some math and do some projecting and planning for how to grow a land clearing business and sort of what's possible and then what's next steps in terms of growth and scaling. So I call this the Land Clearing Growth Calculator. It's just something I kind of designed on this Google sheet here. And so basically, we input some data from Google, we input data from your business, and it pops out sort of what's possible based on worst, middle, and ideal close rates. So that way you can kind of see, when you're looking at marketing costs and how much to spend on your ad spend, which is sort of the dial that's used to see how many leads you can get and what that can convert to in terms of revenue. So, another thing I'd like to point out, I put the worst closing rate at 5%, meaning 5% of people who inquire to get information, estimate, more info on your business, 5% of those people actually becoming a job. Middle rate's 15%, and then I have best at 30, which is still pretty conservative because our best clients are closing more like 40 to 50%. And then you have a few rare ones who are closing 70 to 80% of the leads that come in. I also have the average job size at about 5,000, which I know is sort of on the lower side. There may be a handful of people where this is a little high, like, if you're just operating one smaller skid steer and most of your jobs are less than an acre and you're doing more maybe mulching versus full clearing, this may be a little lower, but it still could end up averaging out to 5,000 over months or a year, because if you have a couple big jobs, like a couple week-long jobs, 2 week-long jobs, it's going to sort of even out. Like if you have a $20,000 job and then a bunch of 2 or 3 thousands, it's still going to even out right there around that five. And then some people with bigger machines, big dozers, excavators, full clearing, or big wheeled machines, Barcos, Tiger Cats, stuff like that, you may be higher than 5,000 on your average job size. But it's still kind of pans out pretty evenly here. But this is one of those numbers that we would get from you on your business. So I use this calculator when we're first getting somebody in the door with our company to grow their business. And so we plug in what their average job size is currently, and then using information from Google and a software that we pay for called Mangles, which kind of scrubs the back end of Google data. We look at the average cost per click on Google. Then we also factor in the average cost to get a qualified lead from Facebook, meaning somebody who actually fills out information about the job they want done. And then we take that and put in the average conversion rate of the ad, meaning that conversion rate is from people who see or interact with your page or ad to actually becoming a lead within your sales system. Average keyword search, and then average budget. So for our main program, we have a starter package that recommends at least $2,000 a month in ad spend, split between the platforms. Where that number comes from is we've allowed people to do a lot less in the past, and online, if you're not spending at least as much as the competition, your ad rankings are going to do poorly, which means you could end up getting less leads at a higher cost per lead than you really should. So we've really set that up after years of seeing what people spend and what they get good return and results on, and that's where that number kind of comes from. And then this monthly service cost in here, this is just sort of an average across our packages. We have very small packages and very large packages for people really looking to grow. And then everything in between. We kind of customize for your needs. So this is one of those things that we do. And I want to be able to give people access to this calculator here so they could maybe plug in your numbers and sort of see what's possible for you. So looking at a little bit more of it here, with the average budget of 2,000, and this right here is a pretty average search volume for maybe 3 or 4 counties in any area where land clearing is being done. average cost per click, once people are with us for longer and we've optimized, that number usually comes down. Some people who are in super competitive areas, that number may be a little higher. So $5 is sort of middle of the road, so this is good for an example. So with those numbers here, this is set up for a 12-month view, so for a year. So for a year, you could expect to see about 480 leads, which would come out to about an average of $50 cost per lead. In this yellow section, it's based on the ideal closing rate. So if you could close just 30% of those, that would be 144 jobs, which if they were all at an average of $5,000, that would be about $720,000 in revenue with 48,000 spent. So that comes out to about a 14x return on your investment, which is very good. A lot of people, when they're in our process, they look at the idea of 48,000 and they think, holy cow, 48,000, that's a lot of money. But when you look at 48,000 versus 720, not quite as much money. And this is on the lower end, right? You know, the guys that scale up with us after a few months, they're spending a lot more than $2,000 a month, which is why, like last year, one of our clients was able to go from barely $1 million to almost $3 million in just a year of working with us, because we create systems like this and we keep the data updated, and we use data like this and even more to be able to say, hey, we're spending this much, we're getting this much, you're closing at this rate, so we're going to recommend that if you want to make more, we're going to scale up in these areas so that we can get the most return on the investment. Over here, it's just sort of the outputs of worst, middle, and ideal. So looking at these numbers, if you got 480 leads and you can only close 5% of them, which is a crazy low number, that would be 24 sales. And if they were average $5,000 sales, that would be $120,000, which is still not losing money, right? So even in a sort of nightmare worst case scenario, you're still not losing money. Middle of the road, if you could only close 15%, then you're looking at 72 jobs out of the 480 leads. And so that's about a 6.5x return on your money. This is sort of the average across our company in terms of return on investment of money spent with us. Usually it's about 6 to 7x return. That's what we see. Now, anybody who has a really dialed in sales process, they get to their leads quickly, they follow up well, they talk well, they sell well, they do good work. This is more so where they're hanging out. So the top probably 20, 30 people in our company, they're closing 30, 40% on average. So that's where you kind of get to those really big returns. Now, the awesome thing about land clearing, forestry mulching, and the alike services is this is all based on a $5,000 average job. Well, we all know that the big jobs come in, especially in a 12-month time frame. Just this year, we've had 2 clients call and tell us that they booked jobs that were worth well over $500,000. So, I mean, you tack a $500,000 onto one of these, that ROI goes through the roof, right? But this, we like to plan and look at numbers very conservative, very consistent, very average. But that's where the numbers really start to look cool. So if this is something you'd be interested in seeing, we go over this on all of our growth calls. So just click down to our website, check it out. You can pick a time. We can go through this together. We'll look at your business, your numbers, your area, and see what's possible for you, and maybe plan on how we could get you to the numbers that you get to. Like if you're already at 700, a million a year, and you need to go above that, then we can look at different options that can, more for sure get you there. I do have sort of a more broke down version over here. There's just a lot more numbers to look at based on, different packages, and you can kind of see it month to month and sort of see the difference there. So if that's something you'd be interested in doing, just click to the website, pick a time that's convenient for you. If you just want a copy of this spreadsheet here so that you can kind of plug in your own numbers, just shoot us a message, hit me up on the website, comment, message me, email, text, whatever. However, you reach out, and I'll send you a copy of this.